Morning, everybody, and welcome to Strategy Cafe, your shot of leadership inspiration from us. Really delighted to welcome so many new viewers, listeners this month. Cafe is our monthly leadership magazine, but it's been off for a few months, not really sure why, but we're back on. We've got a cracking season ahead with some really good speakers coming up all the way through until the new year. So please do check in. This is our way of picking up interesting topics about leadership, interviewing successful leaders to try and get their tips. And our hope is that you find it useful and inspirational in your own leadership challenges. And that's because our purpose, Alembic's purpose, is to help you as a leader lead better, which is a mix of getting your strategy right and supporting you with the delivery. And one way to do that is to help you understand leadership better and your growth options. Cafe really is a nice way to connect with that, I think, and share our thinking. Be really pleased to hear your suggestions for subjects and improvements and other people you'd like us to interview. And don't forget, you can post questions during today's show. So if you go and have a look on your webinar panel, there's a questions area about halfway down. Feel free to fire questions in and we'll pick them up at some point during the interview. So Richard, welcome to the cafe. Maybe say hello to everybody and just introduce yourself.
Morning, Nick. How are you?
Very good.
Good, okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Metcalfe. I'm the CEO and founder of Arkk Solutions. We are leading RegTech firm based in Shoreditch. We're on a big growth cycle in our business, so hopefully 100% growth next year. And I've said it now on camera, can't go back. Growing that team from just a couple of us, 2 or 3 founders, up to around about 60 people at the minute, based across London and Belfast. And Dublin, we've had a sales office in New York as well that we opened last year. So company's on a huge kind of upward trajectory. Delighted to come along today to talk about my journey, and if anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm sure Nick will share my details as well.
Yeah, great. Really excited to be talking to you today, Richard. We've known each other for a few years. So I'm definitely interested. I think everyone would be interested to hear about founding the business, about growing the business, about going international, expanding into new markets. But I thought we should start off with some buzzword bingo, and maybe you're FinTech, but you're also RegTech, and this is financial close software. I thought maybe a good place to start would be to sort of explain yourself. What is it?
Yeah, explain myself. Yeah, of course. So financial close platform is a relatively new concept that's out there. The idea is that businesses, especially finance departments, are going to mount to the regulation that's coming at them. So by having a single platform that we can manage all of that stuff off, it's hugely advantageous that things can be done in real time. So I'll give you an example. If we had, previously we would have situations where people do a VAT return like 30 days or 60 days after their quarter. By having a financial close platform, they can do that in probably like near real time. So by having the data flowing all the way through the process and continuously, finance teams can be much more efficient in their sort of productivity. You can move people into doing things that are value adds rather than kind of sticking spreadsheets together and that sort of thing. So that's what Arkk do. That's Ark's vision, and that's how we want to help firms.
I love it. I think I always think this new world, it's like we're building motorways, but we're building like motorways on the internet. These are sort of simple A to B solutions, which are revolutionary, really. It's quite exciting. So tell us about founding. How did you get into this, and what was it that kicked all this off for you?
Yeah, sure. So I just need to some fresh air in here. It's incredibly warm. So I was made redundant in the financial crisis in 2009. So I had a situation there where sometimes they sit you down in a big boardroom and say, look, for some of you, this is going to be an opportunity. Well, I was kind of listening at that moment, I think. whilst there were sort of people worrying about emotions and all that stuff, I thought actually I've got the energy and the motivation to try and make something out of this. So I sort of networked, used the next 6 months to really do contract roles, network significantly. And I was doing one particular contract role, and somebody came along and put this piece of paper on my desk and said, can you help us with this? And I went around, did my research in the market, and actually, you know what, I couldn't really find anybody doing it. So my radar went on, and I just thought at that moment, that's the moment that actually this could be my business opportunity. Made the classic mistakes of, you know, trying to getting validation from friends and family who all said, oh, it's really brave, it's probably a really great idea. And then started talking to people in the market and realized there was this problem of something called competition, and the competition were very strong and all that type of thing. But you know what, I thought, I don't really care about that. I think there's an opportunity here to really sort of, you know, I've got the energy and I've got the advantage of being nimble as well. So I was still actually working a job at the time. I threw up a kind of $99 website that said Arkk Solutions do this particular filing. It was something for HMRC called ixbrl. And I found that I just couldn't cope with the amount of traffic that was coming through the door. And the problem was that I was going to bring people back on my lunch hour to say, thank you for your inquiry, let's talk about this. And of course, guess what, right? They're at lunch. So I started ringing people back at 2 and 3 in the afternoon, eating into my own time that I was supposed to be working my job. I ended up, I can't say which one it was, I ended up having a strong discussion with my directors about my dedication to that role. And also at that time, and if any of my team are watching this, then this is bad, this is off the record. And then I was actually outsourcing a lot of my work through things like Elance and Fiverr and things, you know, because I just didn't have time to do it. So I did the honourable thing and resigned from that. Dragged in a really strong technical co-founder, Roy, who you know, who's been amazing over the last actually it's been amazing over 9 years, not 5, over 9 years. And he and I just kind of struck up that chemistry that we've got a sort of strong product person, a techie person, and you know the classic sort of combination that you need, people person, which was me. So
fantastic. That's a great story. I think we then kind of connected maybe 5 years later or something like that. So like a big gap between that, you know, kind of like really organic startup. And then I remember talking to you about hitting Basecamp, which is like you got a sustainable break-even business, but kind of quite interested in your early phase insights. What were the big things at that point? You know, when you just got to, when we first met, you know, what had you learned on the journey to Basecamp?
Yeah, okay, so things that I probably like to share, I think like many owner entrepreneurs, I became the main salesperson in the business, which is a huge mistake. That is absolutely unscalable. So I went through a process of probably about 3 years learning how to hire and run a sales team, and I'd never done that before. I think by bringing in experienced salespeople, that allowed me to scale. So I think a lot of people look at that and say, I can't afford that salary. And actually, you know, I spent more money on hiring bad people, paying bad people off, you know, they were wasting opportunities and giving me bad information back. And I think actually when people look at things like sales salaries, they don't realize that those people will start making money for you soon. So actually it's not like, don't look at the headline number, right? You say, well, what can that person who's efficient and effective do over a 12-month period? The other thing, so I'm kind of thinking if I started again, I was dropped on a desert island, what sort of people I would need. So I think the other person would be to have an assistant as well. So, you know, I've talked a little bit about this. It's my number one thing, actually. So even if you are stupid enough as the entrepreneur to do a lot of the sales, you need somebody running around after you and kind of tidying up. So, you know, on that basis, again, that was a huge kind of, you know, game changer. I think having somebody reliable who's got your back that can defend you when people are coming at you is really important. And it's almost like having a second brain. So if you have someone that's really competent there, you can trust and rely on them. So Yeah, that's what I would do if I was said, here's a set of tools, start again.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I remember when and when I started Alembic, we met up for lunch up in Shoreditch, and at that point I didn't have a PA, and I'd had a PA for previous 10 years, and I mean they were complete gold dust, and I completely agree. Sort of finding that person, it's hard to find them, right? Hard to get the right person, and you know, how do you now make sure that you do get that right and you don't waste the money on the wrong hire? Is there a way that you found for that?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm really proud of the fact that we tend to hire in a lot of people who actually might have previously been our customers. So my CFO was one of my first 5 customers. We've got over 750 customers now, but Jenny was one of the first people that ever bought from me. We've got, you know, my sales director, Danny, someone who I used to place people in business and said I'd like her to join. We've just got Sabina, who's joined as a regulatory manager, again, one of my customers, and apologies for everyone else who I left out. But you know, it's basically your network is your strongest recruiting opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that you should always be, I've got a little black book of people who I want to hire.
Okay.
We just hired director of product strategy from the business from our main competitor. You know, so yeah. It's about having that little short list, and that's what I try and sort of, you know, give to the team as a kind of some guidance around that.
Yeah, so there's kind of like and these days you're kind of building a relationship in advance, and you're more strategic about your key hires and about thinking who's next and who might be on the radar. So that I'm hearing that in a way is key to you for the scale up, is to get ahead of the game on who you might need to attract into the business in the next year.
Yeah, I think one of the best compliments I had recently was people said, I thought you were crazy hiring in all these experienced senior people, but now I see why.
Yeah.
And you know, and that gave some validation for me, like how did we do without these people, you know, and all that sort of thing. So again, I haven't really finished that process. There's a bunch of other, you know, people want to bring in, and I hope that that's really exciting for the people that are here, because actually working with high level of talent and stuff is, you know, should be really sort of inspirational to other people. So yeah.
Often people talk also just about so you know there's just picking up on, there's a lot of vision there, and I know that it when you know, listening back to that story of you working somewhere else and seeing an opportunity with your radar on and starting to generate business, and then your employer sort of saying, you know, how committed are you to this, kind of quite amusing, but really interesting sort of organic startup. But there's a vision there, kind of unformed vision. I know, you know, we talked about it, that vision is really important to you, but you know, how important has it been to tighten up, and how often has the vision shifted, and what would you say about strategy? You know, why how has strategy become important?
So it took me quite a long time to kind of get this, and we're just shaping our vision now, because we're going through a capital raise at the minute business and setting a new strategic direction for 5 years. So we're just kind of refining some of that message. But what I didn't realize is the importance of repeating myself time and time again. Now, sometimes it was like, I think I've already said that, people have got it. But actually, when you've got, you know, 50 plus people, some people weren't at that briefing, some people weren't at that meeting, so they wonder what's happening. So actually, I've given, you know, people permission to say, look, I've heard this before. We actually have kind of in our meeting room, we have cards that say, I think Solomon, it's like, I've heard this before or whatever. So you know, that's to stop repetition in meetings. But actually, I think I just need to trot out the same message. And the message is, right, we're going to the North Pole in 5 years. Who wants to come? And I've got a detailed map of how we're going to get there. And then you start kind of, you know, describing that to people. So yeah, strategy is much more important now, because I don't feel as though I'm on the pitch of the business. I'm like coaching from the sidelines. And you know, that's been a big shift for me in the last probably, you know, year or two, actually, as we mature as a business. And I actually hire in people who, I'll whisper this, who are smarter than me. So it's about checking, leaving the ego at the door and saying, look, I'm bringing in someone who's really better at me at that job, right? Yeah. And I've got all-round experience and I can help them grow into the culture of the business.
Yeah, I think it's great and really important, I think. So I think we kind of get that view that really vision strategy, one of the main purposes of that is communication. It's like a lodestar, isn't it? And you can't do enough. People take a while to get their heads around it. But at the same time, you kind of don't want to sound like sort of repetitive. So it's getting the balance right for sure, and really interesting. I've got a lovely question in from Nikki Fuchs, who's listening. So shout out to Nikki. Morning. Which kind of fits in with our next question. So then moving on to where you are now, where you're going ahead. Has heard their big growth plans from that higher base, and so her question is, you talked about there being a crowded space when you first looked at it, and here you are, maybe did you say 9 years in, 10 years in? So now you're looking for 100% growth. So from crowded space to doubling, right? How did you beat up the competition, and how are you achieving that higher growth rate?
Yeah, so I think it's about the ultimate destination was about innovation in product. So the space that we're in is apps and finance, right? So it's an area that corporates and sort of large businesses have not really had much love in. To give it a term, I mean, if you buy a piece of tax software, you get someone in a suit and tie comes around, they talk to you, and all that sort of thing. So actually, the process is not a particularly enjoyable one. And I think we looked at it from a different angle, where we took 10 of our biggest customers, sat them around a table, gave them a nice breakfast, and started to talk to them about where their real pain points were in the business and why, they were doing things like they did. And, we were fortunate enough, I say fortunate, but this is kind of one of the things that I encourage in the business, is to look for opportunities like everywhere. So people can come to me and say, look, I think we're doing this. Sometimes it makes it, sometimes it doesn't. And this particular sort of move to a cloud platform for the financial close was really fueled by a HMRC initiative about making tax digital. So by understanding that requirement, I now know more than the person I'm sat in front of. So I'm delivering knowledge, I'm bringing value to them. So I'm not just saying, look, we're going to help you do this particularly gnarly kind of requirement that's coming over the hill. We're going to make you do it smarter. And we can leverage new technology. If we do this from scratch, right, we can do this with absolutely the best technology that's out there. So we can throw in AI, machine learning, talking bingo here, right? But, these things have never been implemented in tax systems before, in finance departments, right? So if you can, instead of sticking all these kind of spreadsheets together, you can run that through an AI engine and it gives you suggestions, right? Suddenly I've got someone that isn't doing what they used to do and they can do something else. So that's how we did it. We say, look, we're approaching this fresh, we're using brand new technology, and we're listening to clients.
You're almost making tax sound exciting.
Almost.
So what I'm hearing there is just keep really close to the customer, and really listen to the challenges and issues that they've got, and tailor your approach around that. Great way to beat up the competition is to be closer to the customer.
Yeah, so what one thing that I very rarely sort of get out and flex, if you like, is the fact that in my old role as a software architect, I sort of sit with clients and understand what their needs were. And I think the difference is now in the business context, it took me probably about 18 months to pluck up the courage to say to somebody, would you like to buy this? Right? I didn't used to have to do that. And it's like, that's such an obvious thing to say. And It's surprisingly how many people say yes.
Yeah, really interesting. Just sort of reflecting on a few of those things. So just picking up the fact that you sort of, brought in really capable salespeople, and in order to get, growth in there, leverage in there, which freed you up. So we talked a little bit when we met about autonomous leadership, and I think, one of the outcomes from that was it freed you up to spend time yourself as CEO, more time with clients, asking curious questions, and thinking about product, thinking about next, thinking about problems that are coming up. So that created a bit of that autonomy. But just tell everyone, it's an interesting concept. What is autonomous leadership? And what does it mean?
So this is about walking the fine line between giving people responsibility and still caring about them, I think.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if you look at that example and say, right, we're going there and we need to be there by next year, right? For me, that's an ideal situation to give that challenge to really competent people and say, right, you play that back to me, how are we going to get there? Because the big secret is you probably know better than me, number one. But also, that way they build trust and they sort of adding value to the business. They feel like they're being listened to. I think one of the great opportunities that we have as a smaller, nimble business, and we are getting complexities to scale up, right? We can't still be like, I say to Roy, let's build this. I ring someone up in the afternoon and do that, right? So, that's not achievable anymore. But when I listen to people that have come from places like KPMG and come over here, they say, look, previously I had to go through 6 layers of this, right? In order to get this on a product roadmap.
Right.
I've been here 2 weeks. Suddenly I've got the product roadmap approved, and there you go, right? So if you can get something to market 6 times quicker by having that approach where you trust people, and that all goes back to hiring culture and stuff, right? So trusting people in a safe culture.
That's great. Folks, don't forget to fire in your questions. We've got one from Ed Garston coming up in a second. But just on that, one of the things you talked to me about was confidence for you, and I guess you kind of passed that back to the others. So just give us that story about your own confidence factor.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, it's been as a introvert that had to learn to be an extrovert. Nobody believes me on this, but I was like, I think there was a huge kind of confidence lack. So when you try and sell products and people say they don't want them, you get the awful CEO imposter syndrome that we all get. So you get it probably once every 6 months for 5 minutes, and then I kind of like just shake it off because I think pull yourself together. There's a team out there needs you. So that vulnerability is important to kind of acknowledge but move on quickly. I think in terms of confidence, for me, that was about having a team that believed in me. And sometimes that's about reorganizing as well. I think one of the major things that was a huge kind of boost for me was getting in a chairman and a mentor who had done it all before. So when Alan joined the business last year, he just gave me latitude to say, I think you've got it. I believe in you. And, funny enough, like 2 days later, I was having the ideas and the confidence and the vision around kind of the new Making Tax Digital platform, like literally 2 days later. And I think sometimes we forget that. I know, it happened like 2 days later on the train. And that was because I suddenly felt like somebody was backing me, and you go through these ups and downs, right? And I think if we then think about that in the context of the team, if we can put our arm around a team member and say, look, I think you're doing a great job, I want to keep doing what you're doing. Sometimes there's some feedback in there, right, where you say, look, but actually just switch this, tweak this a bit, and you'll be more effective. But I really think you're doing a great job, and you are there.
Yeah.
It happens, and we shouldn't forget to kind of do that with other people.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool. And it kind of leads on to a good culture. So I've got a couple of photos to share. So this is, excuse me, Andy and Danny, I think, is that right? And FinTech Company of the Year.
Yeah.
And then this one is HFM.
Photogenic staff members on there.
Yeah.
I don't seem to focus on any of these, featuring any of these. So I think this is just typical of saying, look, here's some members of our sales team. You guys actually did this. I did 5 minutes work at the start thinking about it and told you to do it. Then you guys just actually spend all day sweating it. So you get to go to the awards ceremony. I'm not that.
Yeah, I love it. In fact, they're up there. It's great.
Actually, I put the awards behind me just in case we needed them.
Very good. And then this is like great stuff as well. This is everyone piling in together for for your charitable goals, like culture stuff, which is really cool. I guess on this, I was also interested, like when you first started, it was around soft and maybe family kind of approach, but we talked a little bit about performance and sharpening that up, and I think this is part of that in a way, isn't it? It's doing good things and doing things well, and feeling great about it is part of performance, the positive emotions.
Look, this is the hardest job that anyone's got in running a small business, is making difficult decisions, sometimes about team reorganization, right? So I like to think of this, so my chairman and I talk about being kind of promoted to the Premier League. And sometimes you need to then go, right, I need to go and get, players. A lot of the team will make that, and that's fantastic, right? The culture is so strong, and they believe in the company that when new people come in, that gives them a boost. But sometimes you need to bring an experience to do that, and that is hard. Last year, for example, we had someone who had been with me right from the start, and actually got to the stage where we said, look, we need someone that's going to be able to work in a scaler. Had a fantastic chat about it, still see him 3 times a week, helping him with his business, giving time, introducing him to people. He's making a success of that. And I think that's just the ethos, right? You bump into people more than once in life. And if you treat them right, when you bump into them in 5, 10 years time or whatever, hopefully the karma will be on your side. So my view of this is that I inherently think people are good. Sometimes I'm naive in that. I do believe in fairies, but actually, I win more than I lose in that, rather than thinking everyone's out to screw me. So, if I win 9 times out of 10, that's cool.
I can't remember who it was that said this, but a firm believer in what you're saying there, and the idea that feeling is a way of thinking. I think it's a great point, and bringing the team together and getting the culture right is you've got to get out of your head, right? It's really about the feelings and getting the right feelings in there. I think it's been great, Richard, and thank you very much. So just going to move on to 1 or 2 questions, and just very quickly, kind of my summary. We haven't covered everything, but just kind of running up to the hour. So key lessons for me, just listening to Richard, just to kind of emphasize them. So right up front, get that vision clearer and that strategy clearer. Could be really tightened up. I think every client we meet, that's true. And really, the more time you spend communicating about your vision and strategy, the better, because people will always miss it or misunderstand it. And just keeping everybody on that lodestone, I think, is really vital for success. Warm leadership with a performance edge. I think Richard's talked eloquently about warm leadership, but there is a performance requirement there, so there's sharpness in there. And just that lovely idea of autonomous leadership. So it's the fine balance between empowering people and giving them guidance, coaching leadership if you like, but also the ability to step into different roles and not be a one-trick pony. As a leader, I think that's really important, and everyone out there should be thinking about their sort of kung fu leadership and getting a black belt on that. Key hires help transform growth. Really tough one for most businesses to get, but great tale here from Richard, so listen to what he had to say. There's the truth in that. Difficult to get right, but when you do, it's transformational. So really think about that. We didn't really talk about this one today, but maybe it'll come up in questions. So no, not everything has gone right. And one of the really interesting things is getting new products and new product launches right. That's been key to growth, and not getting it right has been so important here, I think, to learning the lessons of how to get it right next time. So, ask questions about that in a sec. And then this lovely point at the end about self-confidence and a balanced approach. I think it's a great story that, we're all human beings, and sometimes things connect up in our brains in strange ways. And just being told by someone you respect and trust, your boss, your managing director, someone who's a mentor and influencer, that you're good and it's true, can sometimes just make magic happen, which is a little bit unpredictable, but definitely worth having if you can get it. Some really great points there. So, and we had a great question from Ed Garston, which is about what's the best way to approach the regulators? You know, do you go and talk to them about this, or, you know, do you just sort of fight fire with fire? What do you do? How do you get the regulators on board?
Sure. Well, they are people also, and we found that by really kind of being proactive was the best way that we tackle that. So, for example, HMRC representation were at our first customer breakfast. So we put the cards on the table and said, you know, last October, would somebody from HMRC like to come along to a round table? It's not a sales opportunity. We're validating what we think is a fledgling market.
Yeah.
And of course, they said, actually, well, your customers are our customers. And I think we overlooked that. You know, it's absolutely important for us to make sure that businesses are prepared for this, you know, digital change as well. Sure, that doesn't work with completely all of the regulators. I mean, we deal with kind of, you know, 30 around Europe, right? And it's harder to get some than others. But I think again, that's part of our scaling up journey. We've now got key people in those roles, in the regulatory manager roles. So their focus is to create those relationships and zoop around Europe, telling them who we are and how we like to help them. Of course, there's a commercial kind of output from that, but, you know, they also, I think the key thing for me is that they had similar interest to what we had, which was success at the moment.
Yeah, they want to make it work, so it kind of makes sense, and you can go in and just talk, and that's best way to go.
Yeah.
So just keeping an eye on the time. I think Richard's happy to stay around for a few minutes for more questions. So I'm just going to wrap up and send you all back to your desks. So thank you all very much for listening. We'll come back onto Entrepreneurs Organisation in a sec, if you don't mind, Richard. I know it's really important to you. Give you a chance to mention that when people are staying on. So just a summary, you know, what's the one thing that you're going to act on from today in your own leadership, in your own business? Just reflect back on everything that Richard said, some great points there. But I always think it's really important just to focus. So what's the one thing that really resonated? And just try and do that. And that'll make a difference for you. So try and make this useful, pick up on one thing and put it into action. It's great to read, great to listen, but really the truth is about doing. So what are you going to do? You can register for our next one now. It'll be up on the website. If you go and search at www.alembicstrategy.com, click on the Get Involved area of our website, and you'll be able to see our events coming up. Culture of Development is up next in September, which is Russell Earnshaw. Some of you will have met him at our leadership conference. He was RFU Rugby Sevens coach and Chief Coach Development Coach, so coach of coaches. Great guy, really, really fascinating and energetic and really amazing thinker. So definitely worth listening to Russell for sort of practical tips on coaching from a sports angle. And don't forget to go to our YouTube site. I'm just going to flip over and see if I can show you that if you're still on. So just bear with me while I sort of fight the technology here a little bit. So I'm thinking you can now see our YouTube site. So Richard's video will be up here shortly, and then it will have some clips from some of the big insights up there, and you've got loads of really interesting leadership in videos here from really eclectic range of leaders. Fascinating stuff to listen to, loads of tips on all of them, and there'll be more up there. So go and have a look. It's a real kind of rich area now, which is Alembic Strategy's YouTube site, which is kind of like where we put our blog stuff. And if you're interested in connecting with us more deeply, our next Leaders Forum, which is our afternoon of bringing peer leaders together to share insight, we're going to be talking about high-performing teams, myth versus reality, and I'm hoping Richard will be there. I'm not sure he can make it, but we've asked, so hoping he'll come and share more words of wisdom with us. But you can join us with other London leaders for an afternoon of leadership insight and networking on the 24th of October. Again, that's on the website. You can go and register now if you're interested in joining us and find out a bit more about that. So thank you very much for listening. You're all welcome to stay on a little bit. But if you have to go, goodbye. Hope you have a lovely day. Hope to see you next time. Please share this with other people and go and subscribe on our YouTube site, and we'll see you next time. So Richard, I'm kind of quite interested just to go back to that Entrepreneurs Organisation for those who are still listening. You know, tell us a little bit about that, because I know you chair that.
Sure. This is, I suppose, the world's largest organisation for businesses that are accumulating $1 million or local equivalent in turnover. And for me, it's been hugely beneficial. It's a support network, it's a learning network, and it's just helped me growing myself as a leader and how I interact with the team. So if there's any business owners, because it's exclusively for startup business owners and CEOs, if you feel as there's a gap in your not just life, but also family balance as well. So it helps a lot in terms of getting that balance right, because we all feel as though, rather be at work kind of making money, but then, someone at home might be saying, we don't see you enough. It helps you really kind of like address those things as well. And it's, all I can say is difficult to sort of put specific ROI on there. But, when I joined, I was at revenue of kind of, under $1 million, probably £100,000, and that's obviously sort of 4+ now. So in that 3 years, I feel as though that's fueled me, and a lot of these cultural ideas are coming out of seminars and learnings. They bring together global experts in this stuff, and the ability to tap into those things is incredible. But if anyone wants to know more about that, I can talk about that till the cows come home. But if you want to get in touch via Nick, then I'll be happy to have a coffee and chat about that.
That's great. So if Richard is going to make it, then you can come and meet him at our Leaders Forum. We hope he'll be there. I got thank you from Nikki and thank you from Jacqueline. So thanks, guys. Thank you very much for listening this morning. We're going to call it a wrap. And thank you very much, Richard, for sharing your insights with us. Really appreciate it. And the video will be up on YouTube a little bit later on today. So if you missed bits of it and you want to go back and hear right from the start, it'll be up there probably by noon. So wish you all a great day and a lovely rest of the summer, and see you next time. But bye for now.
Thanks, Nick. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.